Fellow Falcoholics, welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds of Brews podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Kevin Knight. We've got a special episode. Obviously, there's no game Sunday, so no game preview in the late window this week. Instead, we've got a special bye-week show. We're going to call it State of the Falcons with my post-game co-host, Allen Strk, because, again, no post-game show, so we got to get you guys your weekly dose of Allen on here one way or another. And what better time to do it than the bye week? Have a little, not have to like either be very happy or very sad on a show for a change. We can have a nice level, episode here, Alan. But how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just finished watching, well, actually yesterday, the All-22, watching the offense. Well, just what a beautiful four quarters. And it's been a while since we've been able to say that. And it was just rewatching it, but seeing like the inner details. And I don't know, I came away more impressed by Zach Robinson. So hopefully just stay on those sidelines, Zach. Do not go back in the booth.
Yeah. I think the communication was better. I think that was a big issue. And part of that in the Panthers game was probably the technology issues, which the Falcons didn't really like touch on. And maybe, they're kind of just like, I mean, what can you do? Sometimes that's just going to happen to you. But the sideline is I think, a step in the right direction. Maybe this will be the infamous, Kyle Shanahan moving to the sideline. That happened, prior to the 2016 season. So we also had Dirk Cutter move to the sideline, and I don't know, that was a little bit more of a wash, perhaps, but
and Sark in 2018.
Sark too,
yeah. So I don't know what this tactic
seems to be a theme, yeah.
it could happen. Who knows? But yeah, it's just like you always want to track like what the landscape is like with coordinators around the league, and some of them you never really heard of, some of them are growing, but it's just those tendencies, and some I think have that comfortability on the sideline. I think Zach Robinson said he wished he moved there sooner, which probably won't win him any more fans, but we have to move forward, and the team is on a upward trajectory based on Sunday's game.
Yes, it's nice to go into the bye with a victory, and a victory over a team that not at full strength. I mean, it seems like nobody really is, even like a month into the season at this point. Everybody's reeling from some major injury. If you look at the fantasy landscape right now, it's kind of a total nightmare, especially if you drafted a bunch of Falcons and you're trying to replace, like 3 guys on bye and all the injuries, So it's definitely kind of a nightmare week for fantasy players. But the Falcons, we mentioned it before the show. They're going into an early bye. Typically, teams prefer to have a bye in the middle of the season, but the Falcons have a few significant injuries, and this week could be a critical time to get those players back to kind of iron out some of the issues they've been having offensively, maybe a few issues defensively, certainly not as many, but it's an opportunity to get a little bit healthier, to maybe get the offense even more on the same page, and maybe add some new wrinkles, add some more play action, please, Zach Robinson to the offense. But we can start on the injuries because, the Falcons have, I think one of the probably the biggest developments for this team is the Falcons are top 5 in DVOA, which I think is one of the most accurate measures because it really does try to factor in your opponent and situation and game flow. It's one of the more, I think, interesting analytics that really tries to control for various things. And it seems to love the Falcons this year. And many years, DVOA has not loved the Falcons. 4th in defensive DVOA. And that was, I don't think I ever thought this team would be, even like for a quarter of the season at a time, that type of elite defense. And connecting it to the injuries, like AJ Terrell has missed 2 of those games and half of the second game. So they've managed to do this without Terrell. He's someone that could be coming back after the bye. We didn't really get much of an update from Raheem this week. Kind of said like, we'll talk about that next week, but he's encouraged by him. We haven't heard much of an update on Natrone Brooks, who's another one of the Falcons cornerbacks who had scary looking concussion, last week. And other than that, we mentioned before the show as well, we don't know anything about Troy Anderson. We haven't heard much about Braylon Trice. Any of those guys either. Maybe Taquan Graham, someone that could potentially be coming back at some point. Storm Norton. Like, there's a lot of guys. Thankfully for the Falcons, really, AJ Terrell is the biggest one right now. And obviously, Caleb McGarry, who we lost before the season. But this bye could be the perfect time to get a lot of these guys back, potentially.
Can't forget Darnell Mooney.
Yep.
I just think based on the history of hamstring injuries, they're usually 3 to 4 weeks. So I would be skeptical that Mooney could play against Buffalo, but time will tell the severity of it. But hopefully with Terrell, I think it's going to be a month since that Vikings game. So hopefully he's there, just because with that matchup, we know Josh Allen can make any throw. I think none of the cornerbacks really match up well with the X receivers like Keon Coleman, who doesn't get a lot of targets, but he is a big play threat. So you would love to see just Terrell be back, just provide that solidity. And I think Terrell over the last 2 years has become more of a playmaker as a corner. Like, you've seen him get on his hands on balls, and just I think he's starting to, because I remember the joke kind of like with Desmond Trufant was that he just can't intercept the ball. Like, it bounces off his hands. But I think Terrell, I remember interception against the Panthers last year that kind of finished off that game on Andy Dalton. It was just like, wow, Terrell would not have made that play 2 years ago. So yeah, getting him back would be huge. And I forgot about, I joked about Troy Anderson. I forgot about Taquan Graham. I don't know where Taquan Graham fits in this rotation, because it's a pretty crowded defensive tackle rotation. And I don't feel like any of the players have really played themselves out of it. Like, I even think LaCale London's getting good snaps. And I think Dorless actually had one of his better games this past Sunday. So I'm not sure where he fits.
Yeah. I'm curious there. Graham has traditionally been one of their better run defenders, and they've been a little shakier against the run. So I wonder if they feel like maybe he can give them a little bit more, maybe than London. I'm not sure, but like you said, it would be a good problem to have, where it's like, well, we're gonna have to have someone inactive maybe that is actually like a good contributor, and have someone basically in reserve and ready to go in case more injuries strike, which we know over the course of the season they certainly will. So yeah, I mean, Troy also would be nice, especially for special teams. And if they need a linebacker, I would love to have Troy out there as the primary backup, or the guy, even someone they could just rotate to at times. But same issue. Like, I mean, Divine Diablo and Kate Nellis have kind of been lights out. They seem to have their roles pretty clearly defined, and thankfully haven't needed Troy yet, but we haven't heard anything. We don't know what his timeline is either. So maybe Jordan Fuller at some point could come back as well, probably after the bye. But
yeah, because this team has not played any sort of base. If their base is that bear front, where they'll play with 5 defensive linemen, they'll have usually like Anyamata, Dorless, and maybe Zach Harrison, and the edges would be some form of, whether it's. Have you noticed? Watch tape. It's like either Ebiketie and Walker, and then Floyd and Pierce. Like, I guess in the Washington game, I first recognized this, where it seems like they're dead son. Like, those two combinations playing at the same time. I don't know if that's something to watch for going forward, but did you notice in the Washington game, it seemed like they exclusively used those two edge rushers together?
Yeah, I'm not. I did kind of notice that. I'm not sure if that's like a conscious decision, or if that's just kind of how they set the rotation for this game. But I'm curious. Like, I mean, I could see them switching it up. I feel like Walker has definitely earned like the start, because he's such a good run defender, and on early downs, I think he's probably your biggest impact guy there. We know Ebiketie can do a little bit of everything. Floyd is more of a pass rush specialist, and so is kind of Pierce at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think the Falcons are in kind of an enviable spot there, where it's like none of these guys are superstars right now, but they're all like good edge rushers that can all contribute in different ways, and you can kind of mix and match to find the matchups you like, or maybe just the little pods of guys that you prefer. But I'm curious if they switch it up, or if they want those guys kind of building like maybe some chemistry together, or maybe they can do some different, pass rush games up front with different groups of guys. But yeah, it's a good problem to have, where it's like, oh yeah, we got to switch out our edge rushers, and oh yeah, these guys, I like this group too. Wow, oh, I like all these guys playing edge for a change.
Right, it's not just like forcing someone who probably shouldn't be starting in this league.
Shout out to Steven Means. Yeah, he was. That man got more starts in Atlanta than I think he ever. I'm not even sure if he wanted that many starts, but
he played like 600 snaps.
Yeah,
and I remember him going against Trent Williams at some point. I'm just like, oh, this isn't right. But those are grim times. But nevertheless, now they've reloaded, and I do think they can play better. But I just think, look at that Washington game. Washington is very well coached. Like, the way they set their run game, there were so many pulls and down blocks. Like, they had that front in a frenzy. And then Washington does a very good job also using players to chip. Their running backs chipped well. Even Zach Ertz, who hates contact. I know there's one play where he just completely avoided Jalen Walker, but with the chips, they do it pretty often, and it's hard to combat that. So I do think Jeff Ulbrich responded well, dialing up some twists in games. I think Ruka Rowe was pretty effective there. So You just like to see the Falcons very well equipped, and I think we could tell they are pretty damn well coached right now.
Yeah. I think the Commanders game in particular, we spent a lot of time talking about it on the post game, but a lot of people kind of just look past them because they didn't have Jaden Daniels, and obviously McLaurin out is a loss for their passing game. But I thought Mariota came to play. I thought he played one of the best games of his career. He was just, I mean, the placement on a lot of those throws, the Falcons were pressuring him constantly, and he was delivering some great throws, some misses too. But I thought he played a great game, and the defense, really had to step up to limit that Washington offense, which we already know is one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL, even without Daniels. And they really didn't give Mariota a lot of opportunities to scramble, except for that one borderline crazy play that Ulbrich tried to run, and that was the big scramble.
With that one.
Yeah, that
is a strong word, but you were disappointed. You're disappointed that.
Yeah, it's oh no, we've gone too far, Jeff. We've gone too far with this one. But I'll give them a pass because the defense has been great, and kind of bringing it back to that. I mean, they're definitely. I mean, they're on better than a top 10 pace at this point. They're still, I think, the number 1 or number 2 pass defense in terms of most stats, and the run defense has been kind of average, slightly below average throughout this far, and the scoring defense obviously. It's kind of weighed down by that 0-30, which is not really the defense's fault. Considering basically 2 of those touchdowns were pick sixes or almost pick six. But how do you feel about the defense the rest of the season? Because right now the defense is kind of leading the way for this team in a lot of ways.
It's exciting. It just feels so much fresher compared to past seasons where it just especially on third downs. I think with the Falcons, if they're going to reach their maximum peak with the current personnel group, is if they could just improve a little bit more against the run, win on first and second down, and get these teams at third, sixes, third, and eights. Because Jeff Ulbrich, I think the best thing about this defense right now is he is dialing up some nasty blitzes especially with Devine Diablo going through the A gap or Caden Ellis through a B gap, or he use a Billy Bowman or Jesse Bates. It's just getting so many people involved, and then you have this, I'm not gonna say stacked, but quality filled defensive line rotation. You have 8 bodies there, and he's mixing and matching there. Even though I like to see more Ruggiero winning individual bouts, I think Ruggiero has been dangerous on stunts. He had one where he could easily sack Mariota if Mariota just didn't throw it away. So I love how they're being well coached right now, and it just doesn't seem like they're allowing downfield plays unless it's an individual battle. Mike Hughes had big laps against Deebo Samuel, and then they beat Tedero McMillan. They used a really good rub route concept on fourth down that sprung free on fourth down because they were playing man. But besides that, teams aren't really hitting them downfield. I know they had the big Justin Jefferson coverage bust, but I think the way they're limiting big plays, I think the tackling's been really good too. We've seen our fair share of terrible tackling over the years. There haven't been too many occasions where a player's missed an open field tackle. So everything just seems well coordinated right now. But the fundamentals are there as well, where you don't see too many coverage lapses and you don't see too many missed tackles. And that's what you want to see from a defense that is essentially been really revamped. To me, they were one of the most old aging groups last year. There was a lot of players on the downside of their careers. Now it feels a lot more vibrant, and they are flying to the ball, and they're not making too many mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the defense is just, I think the coaching upgrade is massive. I think they simplified things, and they've gotten instant results as a result. And I think that was wise. It's look, we're going to go young. We're going to completely flip the script from what we did last year. And I think it shows that was not really Raheem's decision, necessarily to just put the rookies on ice all year. That was definitely a Jimmy Lake thing, because we've seen Raheem when he coordinated the defense in Los Angeles, he was give me all the rookies. We're going to start 5 of them at once. Yeah. And, getting into kind of crazy territory, and it paid off for him. And it was really shocking to me that he allowed Lake, which again, sorry to kick the Lake dead horse, but we're going to continue to do it. It's kind of crazy to me that he just allowed him
to stop. Maybe November.
Maybe November. After this season.
Still fresh right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of comparisons to last year. I think this will be the final year of kicking the horse, but I'm just kind of surprised that Raheem was yeah, that's fine. like we could just not use our draft picks. That, yeah, no problem, Jimmy. I guess if that's what you want. James Lake, yeah, just wild to me. And then of course this year, Ulbricht's like, what do you mean? Of course we're going to use it. We're going to use the guys they didn't use last year too. And I think he's put something together that has created instant results. There's a lot of buy-in. I think this is a scheme that players enjoy. Like these aggressive schemes, these simplified schemes, players love that. They don't like to sit out there and try to do too much. And I think that's why we've seen the Vic Fangio style defenses. Like they either work great or they just stink. And it's because it's really complicated. If guys don't get it, if there's not buy-in, it can go very poorly. The same thing can happen with these aggressive defenses because if you don't have the discipline to go along with it, you can allow big plays. And we've seen a couple of lapses like that for the Falcons, a couple of maybe over-aggressive blitzes by Jeff Ulbrich here and there, but comes with the territory. But I'm just really impressed with how this unit has come together. Kind of just when the offense has struggled, they've really stepped up to try to keep this in check. And it reminds me a little bit of the Ryan Nielsen defense, back in 2023, where, the offense was really not delivering and that Nielsen defense had to win games for them. And it was that defense was a lot more volatile. I think this defense has been much more consistent, even with this weaker game against the Commanders. I think the consistency here gives me a lot of hope that I don't know that they'll be a top 5 defense at the end of the year. I think that's unlikely to stay. But I think they could be a top 10 at this point. I mean, I think that's what they've looked like so far to me.
Yeah, especially with the schedule getting lighter and return of Terrell. And just players also gaining that experience and getting more comfortability with each other. Hopefully you start seeing those building relationships up front. A lot of people are skeptical, but I think Onyemata is very resurgent in this scheme. He's not too gapping as much. He's now getting more penetration. He's capitalizing on one-on-one matchups. And I know last year he didn't have that great of an impact, but you're seeing him now more in the backfield. And credit to them because I thought he was kind of a goner. But I think you still want to keep one or two veterans on a defensive line. And with him and Leonard Floyd, I think they got two great examples of players who have played 800 snaps in a season and been on some really good playoff teams. So you want that experience. Last year, they just had way too much experience and players that were fading. Like at one point, they had 8 defensive linemen on the roster that were 20 years old or older. And it's just – and then you have poor Zach Harrison who's barely playing. And now you see Zach Harrison getting snaps, and every week he's making an impact in some way.
Yeah, Zach Harrison was the best interior player they had last year, and he played 150 snaps. And he's also the best interior player they have this year. I'm pretty sure he's already played more snaps than last year. So just wild stuff from Jimmy Lake. But don't worry, Jimmy. Once we get through this season, you'll be allowed to return to not having people put hate on your name every single week. So I'm sorry about that. It's not personal, it's just business. But yeah, I mean, the other side of the coin obviously is the offense, where the Falcons have not met their expectations thus far, particularly in the scoring department. But I think there's a lot of signs here. Obviously, the Commanders game was the best possible way to respond to the 0-30 against the Panthers, which I think that game is going to be inexplicable. We're just going to keep looking back at that game and be like, what the hell happened here? Did they just party? Did they go on the Love Boat? Or was this a party situation? I don't know what's happening here, but something went terribly wrong and everything went badly. And, that we're just going to try to move on. That's maybe the bury the ball type of game. But
yeah, can I mention one stat that's just
go for
mind-boggling right now? Panthers have been down 20 points in all 3 other games this year, besides the Falcons one. And
I still think, they
played the Cardinals and the Patriots and the Jaguars. So let's just say 3 non-playoff teams, and they've been down at least by 20 points.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that rematch. Let's just say Falcons should be up for that one.
Yeah, I think so. I do wonder if in this situation, if you play this game 10 times, how many times does this result happen? I feel like that result happens 1 time out of 10. And probably 7 out of 10 times the Falcons win that game. Maybe 2 out of 10 times they blow out the Panthers. So it's just one of those weird things. That's why the NFL is great, because you just sometimes crazy shit happens. But you look at the stats for offense. It's I think there's some encouraging things. Obviously, the Falcons have only 19 points per game because they posted a 0 in one of the 3 weeks, which is not going to help you. That's 25th. So if you look at that, you're like, wow, this offense stinks. And in scoring, they do kind of stink right now. But last game obviously was a lot better. In terms of yardage, they're 7th. They're 7th in yardage. I don't know if there's as big a dichotomy. I think the 49ers are similar. They average 20 points per game, and they average a couple more yards than the Falcons. So they're 5th in yardage, and I think 23rd in scoring. So there's a couple of weird results so far.
Wild stats out there.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Jets quickly. So the Jets obviously winless. They look pretty hopeless. But the Jets 8th in offensive success rate and 7th in defensive success rate. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know what to believe with that. But some of these teams, I guess, could move the ball well in between the 20s, and they're getting enough stops. We know the Falcons move the ball very well in between the 20s. So I think that's why their yards are so high. Because look at the Vikings game. They ran the ball, for 180 yards? Yep. And Penix, I think, only had 140, 150 pass yards. But nevertheless, this team knows how to move the ball in between the 20s. So the yards are going to add up. It's just now you got to convert those red zone opportunities. And look, they did against the Commanders.
They did. That was nice to see. They and that's a good defense. They were a 10th in scoring going into that game. They've been handling teams. I think the Falcons bounce back there. It was great to see. This team, again, it's they're moving the ball. They're 9th in passing yards. I think they're 7th in rushing yards. So this team is moving the ball. That's not really the issue. The issue is you got to get in the red zone and find ways to score. And so I hope they can figure that out. This week was obviously a step in the right direction. But right now I think Falcons are still 26th in red zone percentage. They've had 13 trips to the red zone, 6 touchdowns. Obviously not good enough. That's 46%. However, Falcons have been pretty good on third down. That's nice to see. That's also one that you look at it as a positive measure. They're 9th right now. I think they're tied for 8th technically. They actually have the exact same number of third down attempts and successful conversions as the Philadelphia Eagles. They both have 55 third downs and 23 conversions. So, kind of interesting. Are you surprised
by that?
Yeah, I mean, that's good company to be.
I'm just a little surprised because of how inconsistent they've been in short yard situations. I feel like they've blown at least 3 short yard situations.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's I think all the stats except for scoring and red zone tell you that this is a good offense. So my hope is that the scoring will catch up over the next several games, because that's unfortunately the only thing that matters in this league is if you score points. The good news is the Falcons are a negative in point differential, and you have to obviously take into account that they were 0 to 30, but they're only negative 10 after that. So that's not too bad. It could be much worse after a 0 to 30 game. But, I think the offense, there's a lot of hope. I think you look at some of the more advanced stats like net yards per attempt, which factors in, interceptions and sacks and things like that. And, right now the Falcons are 9th. So I think Penix has been very solid. I think the passing offense hasn't been perfect, but they're still productive. We just need to fix sort of the stuff around the margins, get the consistency going, and get into the end zone. And I think if they can do that, they've got the defense now. I think the biggest question going into the season was is this defense going to hold this team back and they're going to have to win shootouts every week? That doesn't seem to be the case. So we can rely on this defense to at least not be a liability for us. So we just need the offense to be what we expected them to be. And then that's a recipe for a team that I think should be competing in December.
Well said. How impressed have you been with the offensive line? Because I was hugely concerned actually going into the season, because I was how much does Jake Matthews have left? We also know about the right tackle situation. I wasn't convinced by Ryan Newsel. All 3 of those positions, I think, have been strengths. Newsel will have his lapses, but he's been fairly solid. I think, to me, the biggest liability so far has actually been Matthew Bergeron, which is pretty disappointing because I thought he had a very good second season. He played better against Washington, but the first few weeks was pretty ugly. So what have you made of the offensive line, and particularly Newsel and Elijah Wilkinson?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were all pretty terrified of Wilkinson starting, and I don't think anyone was wrong to think that, but he's been fine. He's not necessarily a starter, but he's been fine. Like, you can look around and find probably 10 offensive tackles that are having way, way worse years than Wilkinson, and I think he's been pretty solid. I mean, I to the point where I don't know that you're really yanking him for Storm Norton until like Storm Norton's 100% healthy. Maybe you have a camp battle, but they may just not want to mess with it right now if it's not a problem, right? Obviously we know what Lindstrom is. He's very good. I think, there was some early struggles. It's always going to be tough when you have to insert like some brand new person next to you on the cusp of the season. I think the chemistry between Lindstrom and McGarry was awesome. It's sad that we don't get to see that this year, but Lindstrom's not at all an issue. And I think by the end of the season, we'll be, continuing to talk about him as a great player. Newsel has been very good. Like, I think he has been sort of what we were hoping for, which is like a guy that's probably he's not going to be able to match what Drew Dahlman was doing here, but can he still be a good center? I think the answer is yes. I think he is a good center. I don't think he's an elite run blocker or anything like that, but he's a solid pass protector, and I think he's actually started to move people in the run game, which was something he struggled with last year. So I've been happily surprised there. Bergeron, just particularly as a pass blocker, I think has just struggled more this year, kind of regressed there. I think last year he took a big step in pass pro. We were still kind of waiting to see the run blocking. This year, the run blocking has been better. I think the Falcons in runs through the through the B gap between the left guard and the left tackle, like that's like their best run right now. I think they have like 0.3 EPA on average or something like that when they run through that gap. That's like the best one they have. Interestingly, the second best is running off tackle off of Elisha Wilkinson. Wouldn't have put money on that. That's for sure.
There's been some big Tyler Algier runs from both of us, so I wonder how much that contributed.
I mean, they've had some explosive plays out there, but yeah. And then you said like Jake Matthews is just still like a rock solid left tackle. I think his run blocking has continued to kind of deteriorate, but he's still a great pass blocker. And again, like that's kind of what you need from him is just to be a stabilizing force there. And I think this has been one of the most positive developments. It's like, okay, can Newsel carry the torch this year? Yes. And oh god, Caleb McGarry's gone and Storm Norton's gone at the same time. The swing tackle that we trust. Now we have to pull somebody in like and change positions and all this. Is this going to tank the offensive line? No, it didn't. It's been fine. And I think we just got to give props to Dwayne Ledford. It seems like they've been able to basically take pretty much anyone and insert them into this offensive line, and they don't seem to. It doesn't seem to cause great problems. It might not be good, but it doesn't cause this offense to collapse. They're able to continue running their offense and that sort of thing. And Wilkinson, I think, has exceeded expectations in that regard.
I think it was against the Cowboys or Saints last year. I remember Kyle Hinton had to play about a quarter in. He looked serviceable.
Yeah.
And I think Lindstrom got banged up. So it really is a testament to how great the coaching is and just the solidity that play with and just scheme. I know we want to see maybe a little bit more like gap scheme compared to the wide stretch runs and the outside zone. But overall, I've been very encouraged by this offensive line. The fact that they survived that Vikings game, because I was pretty terrified to see what can that Flores defense do. And like they shut down Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. I don't think Gradard had that big of a game, so they did great there. And Washington has a lot of bites up front too, and they had a blitz for the most part to get their pressure. I think Freddie Lugo had a couple of moments, but overall they were pretty much non-existent. So huge kudos offensive line. I think they just. Michael Penix has a pretty quick release, but still, there's times where Penix will be holding the ball for a long time, and he's able to go through his progressions or scrambles. So, no faults there. I just think you like to see a little bit more from Bergeron, but besides that, I think they have a pretty set plan there, and now it's just a matter for the offense. Hopefully, get more downfield shots. Hopefully, Darnell Mooney gets healthier, and give the ball to Bijan Robinson because I believe he won an award today.
Yes. NFC Offensive Player of the Month, Bijan Robinson. We talked a lot about how he's on the Offensive Player of the Year pace, and collecting this award is the first step to getting there. I thought it was going to be tough to give it to him over Puka Nacua, who's also been on just a crazy pace. I think Nacua has like almost 500 receiving yards or something already.
I'm convinced he made Xavier Howard retire.
Yes,
I want to
be
mean about it because look at the family. You have to respect it. But you watch the highlights of that game. Xavier Howard did not look like he was going on football field.
He was like, this is the sign I needed. I'm hanging him up. Yeah, I'm hanging him up after this one.
You're retiring on a team that's likely going to make the playoffs too. Like this, Colts have been one of the best stories in football so far. And he's just like, nope, I'm good.
He just broke his spirit like entirely. Poor guy. But yeah, Xavier Howard, great career. He was like, yeah, I think it's time to hang it up. So, sorry it had to end like that, Xavier. It wasn't fair to you, but sometimes it be like that in the NFL. You just get that can happen. But yeah, Bijan, NFC Offensive Player of the Month. He's been incredible. He's been the engine of the offense, which we needed him to be. But like beyond that, it's been like, no, he's just been like the best player on the team, like total. Just everything, receiving, rushing. He's hit some nice pass blocks, I thought. Like he can do it all for this team, and he's gonna have to keep doing that because they desperately need that juice. Particularly with Darnell Mooney out, and they've kind of been able to just move Bijan into some receiving stuff, and he's been able to take some of the pressure off of that receiving core, which has kind of been a disappointment thus far. Outside of like Drake London, who I think has this week was a great bounce back for him. He's back on track, but Darnell Mooney's hurt, and he was hurt going into the year and just hasn't been there. And I think they've kind of de-emphasized Ray's role, which probably wise. He's always been a guy that can't really block. I think he's a very solid player, a good a solid wide receiver 3, but they've kind of moved to Kyle Pitts being more of that tertiary option, maybe even secondary option now with Darnell Mooney out of the lineup, and Pitts has delivered, and that's another tremendous development this year. So,
yes. Last award we definitely want to touch on is Xavier Watts.
Yeah, my guy.
Well deserved, man.
Yeah. I'm just so happy for Watts. I think he ended up in the perfect situation where he could come in and get a nice, cozy starting job doing what he loves, which is playing deep. And, he's got a running mate in Jesse Bates that's going to just I'm really interested to see Bates, as he plays. He's been playing a little closer to the line of scrimmage, and I'm excited. I think he's going to come away with some big plays there as well. He's been awesome against the run, Jesse Bates. So it's nice to actually have him closer to the line of scrimmage where he can kind of stick his nose in there a bit more. He hasn't been able to play much box safety in his career because he's just usually been the best by far deep safety, and he just has to stay back there. But I think Bates is going to grow too in this, but Watts has been awesome. Multiple picks now. I think he could have had 4 picks by now easily. Like,
the Tampa game.
Yeah. And he's been that tackle against Chris Rodriguez, that's just unfortunate. I thought he took a good angle, got there with the right amount of force, and just Rodriguez just ran through his tackle. I didn't think the tackle attempt was poor or anything like that. It's just Rodriguez just broke free. So I'm not dinging him for that. I think he's been a good run defender, and that was kind of the only knock of his coming out. It's like, oh, how reliable of a tackler is he? How good of a tackler is he? And I think we've seen he's a fine tackler. He's not a push you back impact tackler, but he's very solid. He's gonna wrap you up, and yeah. Shout out to Xavier Watts, and I hope this is the first of many for him because this safety duo could be really special.
Agreed, and he really set the tone in that Tampa game, from the start. He had an excellent tackle on a screen to Rashad White, and we know Tampa is one of the best screen teams. I feel like for the last 3 seasons, they've just been tearing teams apart, starting with Dave Canales there. And he read it perfectly, and he made a shoestring tackle to prevent could have been a 25-yard touchdown. That moment, I know he dropped the interception, but he just seems to be on point with his coverage. Him and Jesse Bates, great communicators. It'd be nice to see if they play a little bit more too high. They only play too much too high. But then again, maybe given the matchups, like you look at J.J. McCarthy, Bryce Young, Marcus Mariota, they haven't really need to play too high. Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, maybe, who knows, Colts and Danny Dimes. There could be opportunities there. But nevertheless, Watts is just, he's providing that range and that explosiveness the safety position desperately need alongside Justin Bates, because we just know the previous stars did not provide it. And this defense needed ball hawks. They needed guys that could just make plays on the ball. One of the biggest frustrations with the defense last season was just teams were completing 70% passes against them. And it just seemed like routes weren't really being challenged, and you never really felt like they were going to force turnovers against an actual starting quarterback. They've capitalized on the Raiders and Giants and Panthers, but when they were playing legitimate opposition, unless Baker Mayfield was throwing up some gifts, they were not forcing turnovers against good playoff teams. So now we're seeing them really force turnovers, and they're getting into routes. So I think Xavier Watts has been one of the main tone setters there, and they needed that. So huge respect to him, and a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. I think all these young players have stepped up and are playing significant roles for this team. And that's going to be the big thing, is for the people that think that maybe this pace is sustainable, or maybe the Falcons defense could be even better at the end of the year. That you can point to, that there's a lot of young players here that are probably going to continue to get adapted to the NFL game. And, Billy Bowman is a guy that played safety, playing slot now, and he played some slot in college, but it was always just kind of a partial role. So it's a new role entirely for him. So I think so far, you like what you see from these young players, and hopefully Pierce and Jalen Walker can continue to kind of get their feet under them and become even more impactful pass rushers. But so far so good from the defense. The offense, we know they just need to score more points, but I think you look around at sort of the stats and the underlying players on this offense, and you feel pretty confident that, like, if Zach Robinson continues to tweak the offense in a positive way, add some more play action in, like you said, they have run more like man gap stuff, and I hope they will continue to do that. So, yep, let's keep doing that. Let's keep using the players that we have, and let's just get healthy. Hopefully Mooney will be back healthy, and we can really unlock this passing game and continue to utilize the rushing game the way it should be. And I feel good about where this team is. I still think 10 wins right now. If we're looking, I mean, this has gone down, but right now Falcons, I think per FanDuel, are like what is it? Right at the 8-win mark. So like, I think the under 8.5 and over 8.5 is the exact same odds. It's -110 for both. So are you on the under side? Are you 8 or less, or 9 or more? What do you think right
Absolutely
now?
over. Absolutely. Yeah.
Smash the over. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say smashed over. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely capable of being a 10-win team. And you still got 2 games against the Saints. You get the AFC East. It does involve the Bills. That should be 5 wins right there. They're not losing to the Panthers again. And I like to see them going against the Bucs. I know the Bucs game is not for a long time, but those games are always fireworks, but they outplayed the Bucs in week 1. So they should be able to get after them. So, they got some tough ones against the Colts, and I know the Rams later in the year, but there's some challenges, but I think a lot of the schedule is favorable for them. And I do think this team's ascending. When you have young players that really made their mark so far, you like to think they could develop even more. Now, of course, some of them may hit the rookie wall, but the way they're managing snaps and just the way they're being coached, I know people are a little skeptical of this coaching staff, but I do think they're better than given credit for. And I'm going to instill my belief in coordinators and how Raheem Morris galvanizes the locker room.
Yeah. I think their assistant coaches are pretty elite. It's why I was kind of surprised that they moved on from Mike Hilliard, because I thought he was a really good coach. So maybe at some point we'll get the full story behind that. But Raheem, I think Raheem should be in the lab this week, maybe drilling down some game management stuff. Please.
You should be watching Sunday Night Football. Those Patriots, we got 2 upcoming opponents right there.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
It's going to be a good challenge.
I think so, yeah. No, and speaking of, we get to have a stress-free week here. No Falcons game to get your heart rate up, but lots of good football. So go check that out, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your bye week. We will be back on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast next week with another Tuesday Takes with Trayshawn, and then, of course, Falcoholic Live game preview and post-game show. As usual, we'll be back to the normal schedule for the long haul, because there's not going to be any more off weeks, folks. We get the break early, and now we're going to be all the way through to January. So buckle up for quite the stretch here of the NFL season for these Falcons. I think the future is bright. I think this. I still feel good about 10 wins. Hopefully they won't make us look silly, because I think we've said we felt good about 10 wins like maybe 2 years now, like last year too. So maybe don't let us down this time. That's all I ask. Let's just get in, just get over the line. And the Bucs are like The Walking Dead right now too. So that team is I don't know how they're going to continue to operate.
I'm not doubting them anymore though. They're just so resilient. I'm not doubting them. I'm not going to guarantee they'll win a division, but I would be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. It might just I genuinely believe we could have 2 NFC South teams in the playoffs, which I know sounds bizarre, but based on how certain teams are playing, it's just Bucks just know I get the job done. I know it sounds a little goofy to say that, but they just built such a winning infrastructure, and they do have playmakers.
Oh yeah, no, they certainly do, and like I just feel like at a certain point the bottom could fall out. Not that they'll be like a bad team by any means, but they got a tough schedule, and now Baker's not practicing. I mean, he's gonna play. We know Baker's gonna play, but like Bucky Irving's in crutches, and they're like, oh yeah, he might play Sunday. What? Really? You're gonna take him out of crutches and put him out there on? Yeah, come on, buddy.
They just got Godwin and Wirfs back, and now
that is helpful. That is helpful. So they're getting some guys back, but yeah, it's rough out there. We'll see. But the Falcons just got to take care of their own business, not look too much at the Bucks at this point. So let's hope that Atlanta can get it done. So guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast presented by FanDuel. And I want to, of course, thank Allen Strk for making the time here at Allen Strk. Allen, anything else you're working on you want to let the people know about?
Actually, we're recording this Thursday afternoon. I have a Kyle Pitts article going up Friday morning, so definitely want to plug that.
Oh, yeah. Hit the Kyle Pitts stuff. We gotta celebrate the Kyle Pitts renaissance here.
I'm not calling it a full resurgence, but there are encouraging signs that we are witnessing a Kyle Pitts resurgence.
Yes, I'm totally on board with that take, and I will be definitely reading that this weekend. You guys should too. Check out thefalcoholic.com for all our great written stuff. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. You can check out my stuff there as well. If you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate those numbers. Trying to get to 10K by the end of the season, so we're getting close to 9 now. So help us out there. Also, you could leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice if you got a minute. That would be cool too. If you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. Also, YouTube channel memberships if you're more of a video enjoyer. And yeah, we will see you guys next week. Enjoy your Falcons free weekend. Or maybe you could just look forward to more Falcons football if this team is good. That would be nice too. But in the meantime, have a good weekend, guys. Enjoy the start of fall here. We'll be back next week. Until then, have a good one, folks.